Hey everyone, welcome in the next episode of the series about my first ever reef tank. Today I will show you maintenance process of this little beauty, how much work I put in, what I have to remember about, what products I use, and so on. So basically, I will explain what I do to keep it clean and in good health. There is some work to be done, but mostly it's just great fun. Let's get started. In previous episodes, I went through all technical details about this tank. I showed you how I created the hardscape, and most importantly, how I included life into it. And it ended up to be a gorgeous reef tank full of great corals, snails, fish, and other amazing creatures. If you're interested, links to the full videos are in the description. But now, let's focus on the next part: maintenance. Comparing to freshwater tanks, maintenance of reef tanks is more important and little bit more complicated. It also includes very cool activities and it's super rewarding. So let me show you entire process step by step. Starting from the basics. Testing. First of all, even after a few months, I'm still testing my water to understand what is happening with all this life in this tank. I always do that before I start my cleaning session, because doing it after water change would give me false results. And I'm interested in how that tank is actually doing, how fast it's using calcium or magnesium, if ammonia or nitrates are rising, and so on. And because I always do those tests on the same day of the week, it's easy for me to observe any patterns. And I'm also saving all results for further analysis. I'm very new to saltwater tanks, and understanding all chemistry behind it is very helpful and educational. It takes no more than 20-30 minutes, and I do that every 7 days. Now let's jump to probably most obvious point on the list: cleaning. Right after I'm done with my tests, I have my cleaning session scheduled. It includes few standard steps that I do in very specific order. Let me explain why. I always start from cleaning my glass. Even though I have a great cleanup crew, glass in this tank gets dirty very fast, way faster than in freshwater tanks. I'm cleaning it with this magnetic scraper. It's fast, effective, and I also like the fact that it creates additional and different movement of water when I'm using it. This allows some of the debris that are resting in dead spots of this tank to be lifted into water column. This way, they can be picked up by the filtration. So this side effect of glass cleaning is actually very beneficial. After my glass is cleaned, I'm disturbing my sand a little bit. This is again to eliminate any dead spots, turn it over, and lift any debris into water column. I'm doing it a little bit less now because I have few snails that do that for me, but still, I try to do that in places that could use some more movement. So you might say that I'm creating a bit of a mess because I want those particles to be taken out of the tank during water change, which I'm doing next. Because it's a saltwater aquarium, I have to prepare my water in advance. I have this small aquarium prepared exactly for that reason. It's a perfect size because it's 12 liters and I'm always changing 10 liters of water. So it's very easy for me to measure how much RO water I need and amount of salt that I have to add. I still test salinity before I use it, but it's almost always exactly right. I have a small water pump here to mix it properly and heater to even out the temperature in both tanks. Now I can remove 10 liters of water from my reef tank and replace it with fresh salt water that has perfect water parameters. It's again very easy to measure because I use this jug that is exactly 2 liters. The last part of the cleaning process is filter maintenance, starting from this filter soak. I do that at the end of cleaning session for a few reasons. I wanted to filter out as many floating particles as possible. This is why I deliberately lifting them when working on my glass and substrate. That means that not only I'm cleaning all the debris from water, but also I'm getting rid of it from the filtration right after. And lastly, I'm cleaning my filter sponge in tank water. So water I have just taken out during water change. I do that because I don't want to kill any beneficial bacteria that might be living on top of this sponge. And that's it for cleaning session. As mentioned before, I do it once a week and it takes me around 45 minutes to complete. After cleaning is done, I do a very quick equipment check. This is very easy and fast part. I check if the heater is fine, I check the pump, I check if there is any residue accumulating on my sensor or wave maker, and that is actually very important. And finally, I'm filling up my top of reservoir with clean RO water. This water is used during the week due to evaporation, and I need to keep an eye on it and refill it when necessary. Equipment checks take me around 5 minutes, and I also do them once a week. So now let's move to the coolest part, feeding. Okay, feeding is not exactly maintenance, I think, but it's a big part of running this tank and keeping it healthy, so I included it in here. And in case of reef tanks, it's so cool. Let's start from feeding the fish. There is nothing special here, to be honest. I feed my fish once a day with very small portions. To keep them healthy, I use diverse diet and use as many frozen foods and natural foods as possible. I add small marine pellets into the mix, but maximum twice a week. So I prefer to use this liquid food, and fish really seem to love it. Besides, that food doesn't pollute the water, and it's great also for my snails and crab. But the real fun begins with corals. Even though most of the corals are getting their energy from symbiotic algae Zooxanthellae, some of them can and even should be fed. Sometimes it's enough just to put some liquid food into the water column, and they will be able to catch it themselves. But in many cases, corals should be fed directly. And by directly, I mean directly into their mouths. I feed my corals with dedicated pellet food or defrosted foods like mysis. Feeding corals is a little bit more complicated and they cannot exactly chase the food. So during feeding I'm switching off my filtration and wave maker to eliminate any strong water movement. After that, I'm gently feeding my corals with small portions using a pipette. I find that process really interesting and fascinating to observe. You need to be careful and very precise when doing that, but still, I never thought I would be doing that. It's very surprising how fast they can react to food and how they are sensing that there is something for them to eat. And they look so different while eating and change their shape so rapidly. Amazing stuff! It's worth mentioning that many of them like to be fed after the lights are out, because this is when they are extending their tentacles. Look at the difference here. On the left, you can see how the coral looks during the day, and on the right, after the lights are off. Quite a difference, isn't it? By the way, this is why coral placement is so important in reef tanks. You should always have in mind how your corals look and behave also during the night. But anyway, feeding takes me around 5 to 10 minutes and I do it twice a week with very small portions. But I always spend additional time observing them right after. I think I just cannot get enough of that side. Now let's move to the last point, dosing. My reef is still quite new, so I'm not supplementing it with calcium or magnesium yet. Parameters are stable and all that is used by corals is added with water changes. But as my reef will grow, I'm expecting that dosing might be necessary. But this is why I'll still test regularly to notice any deficiency. I will just have to see what happens in the next months and act accordingly. But I do use different products. I use vitamins and amino acids. I use very small doses, half of what is recommended by the producer. So dosing takes me less than 1 minute and I do it every other day. And this is pretty much it. This is all I need to do right now, and my tank looks great, stays clean, and seems to be very healthy. There will be definitely some changes necessary in upcoming months, but so far so good. There are no deaths, no illness, no plagues. I don't see any deficiencies, and all numbers really stay stable. As the tank keeps maturing, I'm expecting a little bit more algae. As my corals will grow, I'm expecting more nutrient deficiencies, but this is the point: to observe, to learn, to adapt, and prepare myself. Because for me, this is only the beginning of this fantastic journey. I cannot wait to see what happens next, because new, bigger and better tank is already in my mind. But I am really patient, and right now I'm just going for the experience. If you have any tips or suggestions, what should I include into my maintenance, please let me know. I'm really learning here. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next one.